Hello everyone, back to the day's second video. So we're going to have a look at the ECMWF 30-day ensemble model for today's second video for the UK and for Europe as well. So it's going to take us through pretty much the rest of August. I think go to the very beginning of September actually with this update from the extended ECMWF model. So we'll see what the temperature and precipitation anomalies are forecast to be doing over the next month for Europe in today's second video. Just say that today's first video is storm watch. Just like there could be some quite limited thunderstorms in the southeastern corner. It could be rather torrential and severe in that extreme southeast corner, but most places are not going to get storms today. So have a look at that and see what you think. Today's third video coming up with you later on this afternoon. We'll be having a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. Of course, your week to 10 day weather forecast musing video will be with you this afternoon. But we're going to the Hungarian Met Office for this update. They have got the temperature and precipitation anomalies from the ECMWF extended seasonal model, and that's what we're going to do right now. Have a look at the 4 weekly anomalies. We can't show you 500 millibar heights or mean sea level pressure anomalies with this, but from the temperature and precipitation you get a rough idea of what the model is predicting. So we're going to begin with week 1 temperature anomalies from the ECMWF 30-day ensembles, and this is taking us from the 6th through to the 12th of August. We can see that it's actually a cooler week for the northwest of Europe, so let's deal with that first of all. We've got Scotland and Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland coming out cooler than average there. We haven't seen that on these charts while we've been looking at them through this summer. So it is a pretty cool scene actually compared to average in the far northwestern part of Europe. Also some slightly cooler than average conditions in the south of Norway, and also got Portugal cooling down as well. Been very hot there of course just lately, but things are going quite a bit cooler for them. So the very far northwest of Europe, it is cooling down a bit, but that still leaves the bulk of Europe looking warmer than average. So the hottest anomalies to average, the heat wave continues across central parts of Europe from eastern France through sort of the Low Countries, Belgium, Holland, Benelux countries into Germany. And then going up into the very far south of Scandinavia around these Baltic states, and then through Poland and down into places like Hungary. We've got some very hot air going on there. The rest of Scandinavia is coming out, well, it's coming out warmer than average over Sweden up to Finland, and then, say, through the Baltic states into west of Russia. Norway is a little bit cooler, though, particularly the south of Norway. And as far as the Mediterranean is concerned, so I've already said Portugal is rather cool, but much of Spain actually continuing to be quite hot. Perhaps not quite as hot as it has been, but even so, still warmer than average, so still really very hot across much of particularly eastern Spain. Most of the Mediterranean also looking hot as well now, so it was a coolish start to the summer, but things have definitely warmed up through the Med over the past couple of weeks. This far eastern and southeastern corner from kind of like Greece over towards or up towards the Black Sea, coming out a little bit cooler for those areas, quite warm in the Balkans. But the core of the heat is across those central parts of Europe. Still quite warm for eastern parts of the UK, but things will be cooling down here in the next few days. Rainfall also shows quite a significant change on what we've had through the course of this summer, so it is looking rather wet here in the west of Europe, above average precipitation anomalies, particularly again focused around Norway, so quite a cool wet week coming up for Norway. The UK is also going towards average to slightly above average precipitation anomalies in some places, particularly western areas of the UK, and also Ireland has gone to average to slightly above average rainfall as well. France is looking rather wet, probably primarily through thunderstorms across France, so particularly the south of France coming out really quite significantly wetter than average, and those wet conditions do extend in towards the north of Spain as well, around the Pyrenees. Portugal looks quite dry. Otherwise, through the Mediterranean, so there could be some showers through the western basin of the Med. These eastern parts of the Med are coming out drier than average, and then much of Central and Eastern Europe, where we've got that ridge bringing the extensive heat across Central and Eastern parts of Europe, back to Western Russia over there. Those areas are all coming out very significantly drier than average. So essentially the dry and hot conditions are being pushed a little bit further eastwards into central and eastern parts of Europe this week, as cooler and rather more unsettled conditions come into the northwest. That's the broad sort of message for the week ahead. We go through to week 2, which is taking us from the 13th through to the 19th of August, and we're looking like this. The hottest temperatures then, temperature anomalies to average, are actually being pushed right over into the far east, northeastern corner of Europe. It is still coming out warmer than average, though, through many of these central parts of Europe. So again, Germany, Poland, it's hotter than average there, and then the heat picks up even more as you get further eastwards in towards countries like Ukraine. Up to the northwest, so it's closer to average for Scandinavia, the UK and Ireland. It's going a little bit on the warmer than average side. On the scale, it's kind of like 0 to 1 degree above average, but it's certainly cooler again that week than we've had through most of the summer in northwestern Europe. So we have got a cooler couple of weeks coming up here, I think. Definitely signs of a cool down compared to what we've had through a lot of Scandinavia, through the UK, through Ireland during the course of this summer. France is coming out average to a little bit cooler than average as well. It's going cooler than average down across Spain and Portugal. Bear in mind, we'll still be very hot in those areas because it's the middle of summer. Italy looking rather cool as well, but these central parts of the Med again coming out warmer than average through the holiday islands of Mallorca, Minorca and Ibiza, although Corsica and Sardinia is a little bit cooler than average perhaps there. And then down into the southeast, it looks a bit warmer this week into the southeast of Europe, so through Greece, those areas look like they're turning a bit hotter. But the real heat is up here in the eastern to northeastern part of Europe. Precipitation is looking like this. So southern Europe going quite wet, particularly focused around the Alps, so kind of the Côte d'Azur over towards northern Italy, and then up towards the Alps. Those areas are coming out really quite wet, also possibly down to some parts of the Balkans as well. Then we've got the central basin of the Mediterranean, rather above average with precipitation there, so there might be something a little bit thundery beginning to take place. Otherwise, further north, many central and northern parts of Europe are going towards average to slightly drier than average conditions up in the north of Europe, so presumably some sort of re-establishment of the high pressure is beginning to take place there as we're going through that particular week. But generally not as dry, not as hot in the northwest of Europe as it has been. That's week 3. It takes us from the 20th through to the 26th of August. And this one, again, we see a bit of a north-south split. So we're reverting back to that pattern we've had through much of the summer, which is southern parts of Europe forecast to be close to average or possibly a little bit cooler than average through much of the Med. But do bear in mind, again, it's high summer. So although it's like a degree or so below average, if the anomaly is correct, it will still be very hot through most of the Med. Northern Europe is returning to above average temperature anomaly, so this looks like a warmer week here as we go through the 20th to the 26th of August, maybe a re-emergence, you might even say, of the heat wave, although the anomaly is not as hot across Central Europe as it is at the moment. It does look as though from Ireland and the UK in the west over to those Baltic countries, generally it's coming out around 1 to 3 degrees above average, so quite warm across much of Central and Northern Europe for that second half of August. And we see a very similar sort of story in terms of precipitation anomalies, so Southern Europe weekly sort of above average with precipitation, Northern Europe weekly below average with precipitation. It's not a particularly strong signal either way, but it does look as though broadly the high pressure is re-establishing itself through this week from the 20th to 26th of August, with perhaps slightly more unsettled conditions down across southern parts of Europe. And then that's how we look for week 4, which takes us from the 27th of August to the 2nd of September. No real change, a little bit cooler for the UK and Ireland again in this week, going back closer to average, especially for the Republic of Ireland, but also for much of the UK. Temperature anomalies around 0 to 1 degree above average. Most northern and central parts of Europe are between 1 and 3 degrees above average, so another really quite warm week there across many central and northern parts of Europe. The Mediterranean areas, they're looking a little bit cooler or closer to average. Precipitation wise, we see that the week signal for being drier than average is moving further northwards and northeastwards, so I would think there's some sort of low pressure beginning to move in from the Atlantic through this very end of August and into the beginning, first couple of days of September, just maybe starting to turn that little bit more unsettled in the northwest of Europe as the high pressure is getting pushed back into the northeast. That would be my interpretation, but by this point the precipitation anomalies are very weak, but it still looks as though it's a little bit drier than average for the north of Europe, a little bit wetter than average in the west and the southwest of Europe. By week 4, the anomalies will always be getting weak, because the further out you go, the more the model loses the signal, if you like. So that's it. It looks like it is a little bit cooler for the northwest of Europe to start off with. We may see the weather turning hotter and drier for much of northern Europe as we go into the 3rd week of the month. The 3rd week could see the heat wave possibly re-emerging, and then we get to the end of August and the start of September, and I think there are hints there of a breakdown moving into west-northwest. Throughout most of this, though, much of central and northern and northeastern Europe, and increasingly actually eastern Europe, where it's not been that hot this summer, but eastern parts of Europe looking like having a really hot time of it generally over the next 4 weeks. It's in the west that it's a little bit changing from week to week, a little bit of intra-week variation. So some weeks, like the coming week, a little bit cooler, and then the 3rd week particularly looks a little bit warmer. Right, we'll do it all over again next Tuesday with your next 30-day look ahead. That'll take us further into September. Coming up this afternoon, we'll have a look at the weather in detail for next week to 10 days. Don't forget to check out Stormwatch. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.